about the system, two parallel visual systems.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Yeah, so some cognitive science students, right? Good. So you should hopefully like this. The philosophy of cogsi. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the two visual streams, consciousness and qualitative character. So here's the plan. I'm going to just introduce you to the idea of the two visual streams by talking about patient DF. I think her name's D. Fletcher, Scottish woman, who the two visual streams hypothesis was first discovered kind of with her help because of some unfortunate brain damage she suffered. So that's an interesting psychological phenomenon that there seem to be these two visual streams, but doesn't necessarily tell us what we see empirically doesn't necessarily tell us what's going on. So we need to do a bit of philosophy, trying to work out what's going on in these two visual streams, what they're like. So there are two rival interpretations of what's going on currently existing one that's like by far one that's like by far the dominant one, and then a kind of newer interpretation. So I'll explain those to you. Then what I want to do is actually give a new interpretation that I think is better than either of the existing ones. So that's the new interpretation, and I'll try and persuade you that it's better or at least as good as them. And then I'll talk a bit about overflow in general, which is this phenomenon that Ned Block has kind of talked about, overflowing consciousness, and how it relates to qualitative character. And particularly this posit I'm going to make of unconscious qualitative character. The main thing is two visual streams. There are two philosophical interpretations of those currently. I want to give you a new one and persuade you that it's good. So let's talk about the two visual streams, DF in two visual streams theory. So DF was taking a shower in 1988 and her central heating or boiler failed and flooded the shower with carbon monoxide. She passed out and she would have died if her husband hadn't found her and taken her to hospital. She was all right, but she had suffered lack of oxygen to the brain and she suffered some brain damage because of it. The brain damage manifests in visual deficits. So she can talk, she's otherwise normal, but just the only thing really is she suffered brain damage in the visual area as well. I'll show you a diagram a bit later. So she's got what's called visual form agnosia. Agnosia means I don't know. she can't tell you what shapes she's looking at. So this is the F1 blocks. These squares and rectangles are all the same size surface area, but they're obviously different proportions of the different lengths. So she can't tell you if it's a rectangle or a square. She can't describe it. Let me just move my bubble thingy. So
sorry, was that only verbal response?
You're too clever. Just wait. Wait. Good question. Just wait. These she can't tell you what the differences between them are. She can't describe it. So that's why it's visual form agnosia. She can't describe the shapes of things. Generally, she can't recognize objects or distinguish them by looking at them. She can't tell you this is a pencil, this is a letter, this is whatever, she can't describe them, can't name them. But that what's weird is she retains very impressive visual motor control abilities, i.e. visually guided actions are in very good shape, near normal, actually. So, for example, she can't tell you what the differences between these blocks are or these shapes, but she can grip them perfectly. So the hand somehow knows better than the speech. So the thing is, when she grasps a block, when you reach out, if you want to practice it now, reach for your cup or something, Matthew. You see your grip adjusted about halfway through. It didn't adjust when it got there. It didn't go like, I'm too big, like that. You went, I know the size. She does the same. She adjusts her grip quite early. So she's got normal control in that way. You do have to look to do it, if you notice, yeah. So it's quite normal what she's doing. she can flawlessly post a letter through a letterbox with different orientations. So it looks like this. This is one of the tests they gave her. They've got this letterbox set up. I'm going to tell you about the authors of this work in a minute. And the letterbox, they can spin it around for different orientations. And they give her something like a letter to post through it. And she can do it perfectly. This is her, and this is normal people, so it's practically normal. Now, is it just a verbal problem? All right, that was your question. No, this is really weird. It's about doing the task versus describing the situation, but it's not a verbal matter. So another experiment they did, this is very cool, is they said, don't post the letter, but match it to the orientation. So make it the same orientation as the letterbox. Normal people do this just as well as they post. D is all over the place. She can't do it. She's at chance. So that's the same. That's not verbal. That's just, instead of posting it, match it. So it's about what the task is. Is it do something like post, or is it indicate or say or show or describe what the situation is? That's what she can't do. Okay, does that answer your question? So it's very cool or weird. She can't say how the letterbox is oriented. She can't say, oh yeah, now you've got it vertical. She can't say that, but she can flawlessly post it through if you tell her to post. Got it with me so far? Okay. Did you have any other question about it? Did you want to?
Yes, I think this explains. When I play football, I can see the ball, but I cannot really kick it, or at least I cannot send it where I want.
Oh,
So maybe there's discrepancy between
that's the converse.
Converse, yeah, the opposite. Discrepancy between these two systems.
Yeah, there are. So I may come back to that later. There is a converse deficit. Yeah. So Milner and Goodale, who were the authors, who were basically lucky enough. Not Dee was not lucky to have the brain damage, but they were lucky enough to be introduced to her and work with her, and have worked with her ever since, like the late 80s. So they doing these psychological tests on her. I thought this suggests that there's like some kind of anatomical split in the brain. There's some visual pathway that's guiding, so to speak, our descriptions and our speech and how we characterize a scene, and there's another one that's guiding our actions. And there's now been anatomical support for this in brain scans. So there are thought to be two visual streams. Well, let me just show you a bigger picture to describe it before I go on to the rest of the slide. So, I mean, light comes in there, tickles the retina, signals go back, bit of lateral geniculate nucleus processing into primary visual cortex, which is kind of like a tower block of different offices doing different things. One floor processes edges, movement, color, stuff like that. So it goes up, the information, then it spits it back forward, further forward to the brain. So these are the two visual streams. So there's one pathway that goes kind of down, ventral, which goes to frontal executive areas and thought areas and decision-making areas. And there's another pathway that goes through the top, the dorsal pathway, and that goes to motor areas, pretty directly to motor areas. It doesn't go any. This diagram's a bit misleading. Really, I think this arrow should go kind of up here, and this one should stop about there, motor areas. It doesn't get all the way to the front. So this has been conferred anatomically. One of them, the ventral, is for conscious vision, if you like. It allows you to recognize objects, survey a scene, and report what you're seeing. That's the bit that's damaged in DF. So she's got damage around here, particularly. The other one is the dorsal, and that's for vision-guided action. It's faster, seems to be unconscious, like you're unaware of it. The calculations involved in grabbing your cup are very complicated. The brain has got to work out the distance from the hand to the cup and get the aperture right, but you don't have an eye in your hand, your eye is here. So the information it's got is where the thing is in relation to your eye, and it has to compute where it is in relation to your hand. That's very complicated. We struggle to get robots to do that. Are you aware of any of these calculations when you reach out and flawlessly just grab something now and get in it? It's incredible that you can do that. Are you aware of any complicated calculations? No. So that seems to happen unconsciously. You're not aware of it, and it's fast. If something flies at you and you want to grab it out of the air, you play baseball or cricket or something, that's what you're using is the dorsal stream. So the ventral is what you might use when you're going shopping. Slow, deliberate, intentional. I'm choosing clothes or things in the supermarket based on color, shape, size, semantic properties. This is cereal. This is washing up liquid, washing powder. I want to eat this. I don't want to eat this. The dorsal is much faster, kind of automatic in a way. You just set it, you do it for a set task. Or to pick up a pencil or grab a flying object. Boring, could you put your pen down for a second? I'm not telling you off. Just, no, put it on the table. Now pick it up. So look how he picked it up. Hold it up, hold up. He's picked it up in such a way that he can start writing with it. He's picked it up with the correct end downwards. You don't think about doing that, you just do it. You don't really think about it. You could have picked it up upside down and then you'd have to make an adjustment, but you didn't. When I pick this up, I don't kind of go, oh, upside down. I pick it up to drink from it with the right way up. That might seem trivial to you. Very hard to get a robot to do that because it doesn't understand the relevance of the shape of the object and which end is which and what it is, the semantic properties. When Roger Federer hits a ball very fast, he's using the dorsal stream. Now, this isn't just a human thing. This is the smallest mammal. I forget his name. He's a kind of raccoon, I think. This anatomical split has been confirmed across the mammal kingdom. So your cat has it, your dog has it, monkeys have it. So that's DF, two visual streams. Anyone got a question about the cog sci psychology bit? Sure? Clear? You got it clear? Okay. Let me do you a little test so you can see how weird this is. This is the Ebbinghaus illusion. So I told you it's an illusion. Of course, you smell a rat already because here's a nice picture in a philosophy talk. So what's going on with this picture?
Middle circles are the same size, but because of the outer circles surrounding it, one looks smaller where the other looks bigger.
Yeah. And did you know that already? How long have you known that?
I did a small project on it during college.
Oh, cool. You can tell me if I'm going to get this wrong then. So a while. Now, for all your knowledge, for all your propositional knowledge about the size of them, do they look any different to you than before? Like, do you now see them as the same size?
No, they still smaller.
So the eyes, so to speak, still invite you to believe they're different sizes, right? Okay, that's not the weird part. This is the weird part. Go and grab the one on the left with your fingers. Now go and grab the one on the right. Now, did you adjust your grip much, if at all? No. Did you make a massive adjustment in your fingers to reflect the difference that you see in your eyes? No, that's weird. So so to speak, your eyes think they're different sizes, but your hand knows better. So that's evidence for this split in the visual systems. One visual system is telling you they're different sizes, but the other one, the one that's feeding to your hand, is telling you they're the same size. And that's obviously very important. In a way, it doesn't matter if conscious vision says they're different sizes, like that might be helpful in certain situations to spot things coming at you or something like that, or predators or picking things out. This is bigger, this is smaller. But your motor system's got to get it right. It's got to get the grip right. It's got to grab the thing out of the air before it hits you and be the right size. So it's very important that it uses different kind of information. So that's a bit of support for the two visual systems hypothesis. Okay. But what's going on? So that's just what we know scientifically, empirically, what's actually going on in the dorsal, particularly in the dorsal stream. The ventral stream corresponds more or less to what we would describe as what we see, what we can talk about. But what is going on in the dorsal stream exactly? Are they, particularly this is the question I'm interested in, and I suppose it's the question in the debate, are they the same in nature and character, or are they radically different? Are they radically different? And there are two rival interpretations. One of them says they're radically different, the other one says they're pretty much the same.
Sorry.
Yes.
Can dorsal system work without ventral?
Yeah. Well,
completely without.
Good question. I think so, because as long as your early visual cortex is intact, the feed through the dorsal, I mean, there are connections, as I'm going to come to talk about in a bit, but they are anatomically distinct pathways. So there's no reason why, D's ventral stream is significantly destroyed by the brain damage, but her dorsal stream works fine. So, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to know because the
So
brain.
sorry, which one is responsible for seeing? The ventral.
Ventral is, well, that's putting it contentiously. They're both responsible for seeing in a way but anyway, the one that's responsible for motor control is the dorsal. The one that's responsible for report, you describing a scene and surveying it, is the ventral.
Can I successfully grab things without seeing them?
Without consciously seeing them?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
that's maybe too much,
but in a way, that's what. Well, you're kind of preempting where again. You're being too clever. You're preempting where I'm going next. I mean, in a sense, you're not consciously seeing the correct shape and size and distance of the object. That processing is going on unconsciously. It is visual. If you try and do it with your eyes closed or your vision occluded, you won't be able to do it. So it's visually guided in that sense. It's going through visual pathways as well. I don't know if you know this, but like your pupillary response is, it is a function of light going in, but the circuit in the brain is not in the visual cortex. It's somewhere else. It's in the lower mammal brain. So there, it's a bit questionable whether that is seeing really, as opposed to just input through the eyes. But the dorsal stream and ventral stream both take their feed from the visual cortex. So it is a visual system. But this is a good question. Come back to it later. Yeah.
So, going back to that, what about blind people? If you describe to them, have they done, I suppose that they have done research on this, if you tell them, okay, there's a pot with plants in front of you, how did they grab it?
At chance. They're just random. It's random. Even so, there are people with the converse deficit, the one maybe Boren has for football. They've got dorsal stream damage, but not ventral stream damage. So they can tell you, I'm holding a letter, the letterbox is horizontal, my letter's horizontal, they can match perfectly, they can't post it. They just fumble. They get there and they're in a mess and they have to adjust. That's the converse deficit. So they're not visually blind, but they're obviously not getting the same scene that we're getting. Something is in a mess there. But you can't, because of this distinction, it's not easy now to talk about blind. You've got to be more specific than that. I mean, there's retinal blind, there's cortical blind, but even cortical blind isn't going to be enough. You now got to talk about damage to these two visual streams, which go outside the visual cortex. So it's a bit more complicated, yeah. But does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? It's a good question. What's going on anyway? This is a kind of philosophical question. Two rival interpretations. The first one, which is by far the standard view, I would say, is that the dorsal stream is a kind of zombie or just a robot computer subsystem thing. This is a philosophical zombie, made famous by David Chalmers, I suppose. It's here's one of us. When we're poked with a knife, we feel pain and we say ouch. The zombie is physically and neurally exactly the same as us. We're supposed to be able to imagine this. It also says ouch when poked by a knife, but it lacks any pain quale. That bit is skipped out. So on this view, the dorsal stream is a bit like the zombie. No qualia there, no qualitative character, no consciousness, nothing. It's just a functional system. And that would make it radically different from the ventral stream. Ventral stream is conscious and has qualitative character because it represents shapes, colors, object properties, semantic properties. You can say, that's my pen, that's my pencil. You can identify objects. Dorsal stream is unconscious and merely computational. It just does the computing, and that's why you're unaware of the computing, because it's unconscious. So Andy Clark called it the zombie stream, more like a subpersonal system than a mental faculty. It's not really, in a way, part of your mind. You've got no introspective access to it at all. You just use it. Also, its information translates directly to action. So it feeds directly to motor areas. It just goes vision, motor area. It doesn't go via thought or consciousness or anything like that. It just doesn't get there. Milner and Goodell compare it to a robot arm. Imagine you had a robot arm and you could just, when you saw something, the arm would automatically reach out and grab it. It's like you wouldn't think there was any consciousness associated with that, or that there was anything it's like to be the arm. The dorsal stream is a bit like that. That's the dominant view. So it lacks qualitative character. It's mere processing of some sort. Any questions about this interpretation? No? We kind of set it tasks by looking at the cup and deciding to reach. You set it a task to solve. Guide my hand to the correct grip to pick up the cup or the flask or whatever it is. And it just does it kind of automatically. Okay. Here's Wayne Wu. He's a nice guy and a very good philosopher of neuroscience, the philosopher of mind. And he has this cool view, which is only a few years old, that the dorsal stream is actually secretly conscious. So he says it's very similar to the ventral stream. They're both conscious visual systems. There's experiences in both of them, visual experiences of the scene. It's just that we can't get at the experiences in the dorsal stream. They're inaccessible to us. If I ask you to introspect, that is to say, what are you seeing now? Look at the color. Describe the colors you're seeing. What will light up is your ventral stream. The dorsal stream doesn't light up. So when you introspect, you're only introspecting the ventral stream. So in a way, you don't have any idea what's going on in the dorsal stream. It's hidden to you. You may assume it's unconscious, but there's actually no real evidence for that. Yeah, the main reason to think it's unconscious is just that we can't introspect it. Wu emphasizes that's the only reason. But that's not evidence of unconsciousness. That's a lack of evidence of consciousness. Not the same thing. So it just leaves open that it might be loads of experiences in there, which is weird idea. So what DF does is she denies seeing any differences between objects she successfully grasps and manipulates. But it's not like she can tell that the dorsal stream is itself unconscious. It doesn't show that. This doesn't show that the dorsal stream is unconscious. In fact, the empirical data just don't count in either direction. Nothing we can tell experimentally or physically in terms of the brain scans says anything about whether the dorsal stream is unconscious or not. So Wu says it could be conscious but inaccessible, which would be a case of what Ned Block calls overflow, where consciousness somehow overflows cognitive access. So I'll give you a more everyday example of blocks. So say there's been a drilling sound in the background for some time and you're in the middle of a heated conversation. You don't notice the drilling sound until it stops. And suddenly you're aware, or like the fridge humming, or this sound I can hear. Is it the projector again? You don't notice it until it stops or changes. And now you say, oh yeah, could you shut the window? Or that drilling sound's been annoying. Or, oh, there's been a drilling going on. Were you hearing it before you noticed it? Were you conscious of it? Block says, yes, you were. Because otherwise, how could you notice it stop if you weren't hearing it? But would you have been able to say or do anything about it before you noticed it? Well, intuitively not, because in a way, you didn't, even though you were experiencing it, you didn't know it was there. You didn't notice it. Now you can report on it. Now you can act on it. So in Block's idea, you have like a lot of experience, a lot of consciousness, including this sound. But because your attention's on whoever you're talking to, your cognition is rather narrowly focused, and it just can't get at this sound until for some reason maybe the stopping draws your attention, and now it's cognitively available. Does that make sense? This idea? So there's like this much consciousness, this much attention and cognitive access. So maybe dorsal streams like that, it's a load of visual experiences in there, just kind of hidden to you, ones you can't introspect. Try, you can't unearth it. Maybe we could do some kind of weird wiring that would make you able to introspect it, and then you would know what it's like to be the dorsal stream. So Wu has a reason for saying that the dorsal stream is conscious, because it isn't a reflex system. It's not like when I tap your knee and your leg shoots out. This is cortical. It's intentional action when you reach and pick a glass up. It's automatic in the sense that you're not aware of the calculations, but you're doing something voluntarily, intentionally planned action. So because it contributes to action, he thinks that's a reason to think that it's conscious, a conscious system. Just one that overflows. So it just can't be reported on or introspected or anything. What do you think of that idea? It's quite weird, isn't it? It's like secret hidden consciousness you can't access. You think that makes sense or doesn't sound weird, or what do you think? Which view would you prefer? Well, let me summarize them and ask you this question. So there's like a comparison table. The standard view is dorsal is merely computational, so it's unconscious, lacks qualitative or phenomenal character, and is inaccessible. Wayne Wu's view agrees that it's inaccessible, but says it's conscious and has qualitative and phenomenal character. So which view do you prefer? Who prefers the kind of zombie stream view, the standard view?
Well, maybe it seems a bit superficial. Well, when you're grabbing something, you are aware, generally, mostly.
Well, no, because, okay, so think about this. If we put a bunch of bigger cups at a distance further away, vision, your conscious vision will present the apertures as being the same size because of the distances. Think about seeing trees where the trees are further away, but each one is bigger. You'll see, they'll take up the same size in your visual field. But if you went to grab those cups, you wouldn't make a mistake. So there is a dissociation between what your visual experience is telling you, so to speak, the kind of picture of the scene you get, and what's guiding your hand. Because otherwise, if you really had the impression, if your motor system had the impression that they were the same size, the apertures, then you would do the same one for each, but you will adjust.
Well, the case is when we are looking at something, say this book under machine, so we are going around to see better. Where do these cases belong? The dorsal or the other?
This sounds ventral to me. It's like slow. If it's to do with what's in your visual experience, for want of a better term, what you could describe, then it's all ventral. The dorsal is somehow secret in one way or another. Secretly a zombie or secretly conscious, but not part of what you're seeing now. I know it's a weird idea, but yeah.
I mean, it's clear what I want to say, but for me, I don't accept that.
You don't like either view?
Yeah.
Okay. So some of you...
It is unconscious when I'm taking it back, so it is.
It's not part of what it's like, though, because if it were part of what it's like, you'd be aware of the computations that are going on.
Even when you're looking, only looking, watching the things, you're not aware of the laws of optics or something.
But this isn't the law of optics. This is stuff going on in your brain. This is processing, this is computations going on.
So when you are looking, you have also processes in your brain and you are not aware.
But they're not, right, okay, we'll come back to that. But that suggests that it's a zombie. But by the way, those processes you're not aware of are the ones going on in that really early vision. This is late vision. That's what's weird about this. This is late vision. Does anyone prefer Wayne Wu's view that it is conscious because it's vision after all, but I just can't access it?
I like the idea that like there's intention behind it. Therefore,
Yeah.
I also quite like the example that they gave where it's not like hitting your knee. So like not merely reflexive.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of struggling to find an example of something that would be like a zombie stream other than this dorsal, like it's.
Well, I mean, Boran's right that a lot of visual processing is unconscious, isn't it? And they just talk about processing. So you might think it's like that, like the 2D sketch or the early visual stuff where it's building up the image, so to speak. We're not aware of any of that as well. Maybe that's just processing. These are good questions. Can you make sense of what do you think about the drill example? Do you think you were hearing the drill, you just didn't notice it, so to speak? Does that make sense? You were experiencing it, you just weren't getting hold of it cognitively or paying attention to it? That makes sense. So there's a kind of unaccessed conscious experience. Or, okay, now pay attention to the feeling of your shirt on your back. Now pay attention to your heartbeat. Your little toe, your left one, mine's kind of sweaty. Were you feeling those before I drew attention to them? Really? Who thinks you were? You were.
So when you are shifting our focus towards those sensations, we're able to access them.
Yes.
Where with this, we're not able to access even though.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, but you can make sense of it being unaccessed, even if, but not inaccessible. That's where you're drawing the line.
Can I just quickly follow up on that?
Please.
You said that, for instance, the dorsal stream does not activate on certain types of brain scans where we just describe situations.
If you introspect, yeah, there's ventral that lights up, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see how it's. Yeah, I would say it's inaccessible because if it doesn't, I'm not sure your analogy with, for instance, I don't know, the heart, or the beating of the heart, or hearing the drilling sound, because I guess if you make certain types of brain scans regarding I don't know, auditory recordings, that something would light up when you hear a drilling sound, even if you're not maybe
yes,
aware of it.
absolutely.
But the dorsal stream doesn't even light up on the brain scan.
No, well, that depends what you're doing. But think about if I'm doing reaching and like seeing, the dorsal stream's active.
Yeah.
It's just that when you introspect, there's an extra lighting up, and that's
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
It's the differential. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, good point though. Yeah. Whenever people say this area lights up, they mean lights up more than respect to a normal condition. It's like it's not the other bit's dead. Okay. Now let me tell you about my view, which I think is better than either of these. But you see how they agree on the inaccessibility, they disagree on these bits. Notice there's an assumption they've got in common. Dorsal stream only has qualitative character if it's conscious. Only has qualitative character if it's conscious, because Wayne Wu says it's conscious, so it has qualitative character or phenomenal character, colors and stuff, or some kind of what its likeness. And the other view is it's unconscious, so it can't possibly have that. It's just a zombie. Maybe there's something in the middle there. We could go down the middle of those. That's what I'm going to try and do. So here's a new interpretation and why to prefer it, or at least why to take it seriously, maybe. Part of philosophy is to find logical options that are otherwise overlooked so that people can at least consider them, right? That's part of our job. So here's my suggestion. It's actually unconscious, like the zombie view says, but it has phenomenal character, qualitative character, like the Wayne Wu view says. So I say it's similar to the ventral stream. The only difference between the two is that the ventral stream is conscious and the dorsal stream is unconscious. So like interpretation 1, the zombie interpretation, I say it's unconscious. But like interpretation 2, I say it has qualitative character. Hence, it has unconscious qualitative character. And now you say, what the hell do you mean by that? Well, I'm sure you want to ask more about that in the Q&A, but let me give you an analogy that may help. This is not mine, it's from Leopold Stubenberg, who wrote a great book in 1998 called Consciousness and Qualia. I very much recommend it. Too many good consciousness books came out in the 90s, like Conscious Mind and Galen Strawson and Searle. So Stubenberg's book is rather overlooked, but Consciousness and Qualia, 1998, it's a really great book. Anyway, he says there are two views on qualia, right? A lot of people think it's like there's a silver screen view and there's a celluloid view. You're probably silver screen people, most people are. So you think when there are qualia, I mean colors, tastes, smells, the secondary quality ideas, they only exist in consciousness. They only exist on the silver screen of experience. There's another view though. They're more like celluloid in old-fashioned film reel. Maybe some of you are too young to know what this even is. But it didn't used to be that film projection was digital. It used to be little pictures on a film and the projector shone light through it and the colored full images went on the screen. But the film itself is colorful even when the projector light is not shining through it. So you might think, analogously, color qualia and so on could exist without the light of consciousness shining through them. That's the idea. They're still colorful. The film reel is still colorful when it's sitting in the projector's box in the that case, that circular case, but it's not got the light shining through it. So there's an analogy at least. Help you get it. Boran, you want to complain?
No, I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
Actually, I'm not sure about previous slide.
Oh.
You said about the assumption The assumption shared assumption, qualitative character only if it is conscious.
Well, this one says
And this
conscious
one-
and has it, unconscious so doesn't have it. It might be a biconditional there, I'm not sure, but what's your...
Is this shared assumption?
Well, it's more a background assumption. It's more a kind of platitude that most philosophers accept, I think. They just take it for granted. It doesn't figure in the arguments. It's just a background
But
assumption.
here, the second one, it has qualitative phenomenal character, but it is inaccessible.
No,
So
but it's phenomenally conscious. It's part of what it's like to be you. It's just not cognitively accessible. You can't talk about it. You can't introspect it. I know that maybe seems impossible, but that's the hypothesis.
there seems to be a tension between the
Yes.
second and
Good.
the
Yes.
shared,
I agree.
shared assumption. So I would think
Okay.
about that.
I'm coming back to that a bit later.
But this is general kind of a blind side story. So that you see something, you detect something, but you're not aware of that.
Yes. So a similar debate can be had about blindsight, especially with blindsighters that can detect color. Is there inaccessible color experience there? They can't report on it, but they can use it. There's an amazing video of a guy who's a bit like one of Block's super blindsighters. Maybe you know that. But so the difference between blindsighters and super blindsighters is, well, blindsight is real. Super blindsight is supposed to be made up. Blindsight, you have to prompt them, like you show them a cross or a naught and you say, are you seeing a cross or a naught? And they say, I'm blind, don't ask me. And you say, please just guess. And then they get it 90% correct, which is crazy. Do you know what blindsight is? Yeah. Super blindsight is the same, except you don't need to ask them. They just go around unconsciously visually perceiving the world and acting upon it somehow. Well, there's this guy, Nick Humphreys, this psychologist at Cambridge, has this video of this North African guy who seems to be a super blindsighter. These kids are showing him flowers and he's saying, oh, this is a lovely red. He's kind of looking around it. This is a lovely yellow. I can't see it, but he just spontaneously tells you the colors. So that might be mere processing. It might be consciousness that's inaccessible. There's a similar debate about blindsight. I'm happy to talk about that later. My view will also explain that, by the way, so maybe we can come back to that. Can I move on? I just don't want to
go
overrun too much because I want to give you some time for lunch before we have your talk. Okay, so now, run with this for a moment. Maybe you don't know exactly what I mean by this, but run with it as a posit. Well, if it's unconscious, that would explain why we can't introspect it or report on it, because you can't generally introspect or report unconscious mental processes. So there's a straightforward explanation. And I have argued in a recent paper that qualitative character and consciousness can dissociate, or put it this way, qualitative character can overflow consciousness. That's a way to think about it. So all this slide says so far really is there's reason to think the dorsal stream is unconscious. So let me compare the interpretations. I'll come to the qualitative character bit more in a minute. So there are the two existing interpretations, and here's my one, unconscious with qualitative character. So the stars are points of disagreement. So I agree with this one, that the dorsal stream's unconscious. I disagree with Wu about that. I agree with Wu, however, that it has qualitative or phenomenal character, and I disagree with that one that says it lacks that, it's a zombie stream. We all agree that it's inaccessible. Now notice, I just want to stress this again, these interpretations are empirically equivalent. Nothing the brain scans show you, nothing DF or any other person can do, all the people with the converse deficit can distinguish between these interpretations. That's what makes it philosophical and kind of really interesting. Okay. All right, but why prefer my interpretation? Some reasons. So these are reasons to think that there aren't two totally separate pathways going on. They're really quite connected and similar, and they're doing the same sort of thing, really, different sides of it. So the first thing is the dorsal stream plausibly contributes some content to consciousness. For example, so Wu and Brogard have argued that. For example, well, this is evidence that they must be connected because remember when Boren picked up his pen earlier? That should be a classic dorsal stream task. But which way you pick it up is really important because you're picking up for a particular use. And that requires identifying it as a pen, and that's a semantic property. So there must be some semantic interflow. There must be something getting from, I just maybe should say ventral to dorsal. There should, well, sorry, let me do ventral to dorsal first, and then we'll do dorsal to ventral. The dorsal stream must know, in a sense, that that's a pencil or a pen because it can pick it up the right way around. When you pick up my cup or my glass, I pick it up in a certain way. You have to adjust your hand to the weight, what kind of object you expect. That requires identifying it. Those are all to do with the motor action. So there must be some semantic content getting from the ventral stream to the dorsal stream to help it know what kind of thing I'm picking up, which way around to grab it. One thing D can't do, DF, is pick up a pencil the right way around. Sorry, not right. The converse, the people who've got the other kind of brain damage, they can't pick up a pencil the right way around. They'll just pick it up at chance. DF, even though she can say she can't say that's a pen, that's a pencil, she can't identify it. She picks it up the right way around. So the dorsal has some kind of access to that. There are also connections the other way around. After all, you do see things as being grabbable. That's part of the content of experience. You can imagine grabbing it. Things are presented as within reach. So that seems to be, again, that seems to be dorsal stream content getting into the ventral stream, being part of consciousness.
Well, I'm right-handed, right, and I can grab pen very smoothly. But if they tell me to take it with the left hand, then I have to watch more.
Yeah, that's true.
So thing is becoming a little bit more ventral. Well, because
Okay.
I have to look at it. It's less automatic.
You have to look at it for both. You have to look at it for both.
Yeah.
Try doing it with your eyes closed. These are visual tasks. Second reason, they've got a common source. Remember, I told you they both are fed by the visual cortex, early visual cortex, visual areas. So already they've processed color, shape, edges, movement, and the feed is the same. So if that's a qualitative feed, if that's what's being processed in the visual areas 1 to 4 and M5 and stuff, MT, sorry, then that's what's going into both of those visual streams, the same kind of content. Thirdly, they've got connections. One connection is they both feed back to V1 and then share information that way. So dorsal will share stuff back to V1 and then that will be sent back out to the ventral. Another kind of connection is further on. They're actually quite thick connections further on in the head, like kind of here. I forget what this one's called, it's abbreviated to VOC, but quite a substantial nerve bundle connecting the two. So there is traffic through both of them. So what these things suggest to me is they have a common currency. They have the same source and they also connect and feed into each other. They're dealing in the same material. That's what it suggests, the same kind of information. And since the ventral stream content we know is qualitative, it's qualia, that's reason to think that the dorsal stream has the same. So it's plausible that the dorsal stream does have qualitative character of some kind. It has, in other words, content that's apt for consciousness, content that could contribute to what its likeness, in Nagel's phrase, what it's like to be you. This is his way of picking out experience consciousness, right? I mean, Wayne Wu is already arguing for that because he's saying it's got conscious phenomenal character. So he has similar reasons to think that. So perhaps what's the dorsal stream qualia like? Well, shape, size, orientation in relation to me, like precise, more precise than the ventral stream. Maybe, and definitely movement, it might possibly be color-free, which is a weird idea. But if you think that colors are specifically in the ventral stream, maybe there's no color in the dorsal stream. Is that possible? Well, in the First World War, there was something called Riddick syndrome named after a soldier. A bunch of soldiers had a very particular kind of brain damage from being shot in the head. And they said to their psychologist things like, the doctor, I see movement, but no color. I see movement, but no color. Actually, blind sight patients say things like that as well. They describe seeing shadows moving, but no color. So there might just be such a thing as pure movement qualia without color, possibly. This makes sense. So that might be what it, what here is, what would it be like if you could be conscious of the dorsal stream? What would it be like? Okay. So one more slide on why I prefer my view. So you might say, okay, you've made an argument that they have the same kind of content, qualitative character, but why say the dorsal stream is unconscious? Why not say with Wayne Wu, it's conscious, but it's inaccessible? That might seem like the better option. Well, that has got a large cost, that view, because it cuts off consciousness and introspection. It says those two things come apart. You've got a bunch of consciousness you can't introspect. And according to Wu, there's a whole load of conscious experience in the dorsal stream that we don't know we have. We can't report it, we can't register it. You wouldn't know if it was switching on and off, you wouldn't know if it was there or not. That's a weird idea. How can that be part of what it's like to be you? So does that make sense? I mean, I struggle with this. David Rosenthal, whose picture is there, has argued that consciousness can't overflow cognitive access because it just doesn't make sense for there to be. So if think about it, supposedly I'm having take the drill case. Supposedly back to Block's drill sound. Supposedly I'm experiencing a drill sound that I can't talk about, I can't report on, I can't act on. I wouldn't notice if you took it away or not because I'm not aware. I'm not cognitively registering it. So in a way, I'm unaware of it. How can I then be conscious of it? How can I be experiencing it if I'm unaware of it? So it doesn't make sense, this is Rosenthal's argument, for there to be consciousness that's inaccessible. So I think that's a good argument. I'm happy to discuss that, but that's quite persuasive to me. Hidden consciousness is hard to make sense of. I mean, it almost feels like there's another, on Wu's view, there's another being in there. It's like a secret organism with its own mental life, not part of me. So it's inaccessible. That gives you reason to think it's unconscious, but they share content and they do the same sort of thing and they have the same source. That gives you reason to think it has qualitative character. Put those things together and it's reasonable to think it's unconscious and has qualitative character. So I think that's the optimal view. I think that view is preferable because it takes the data of both the other views. The evidence is that it's unconscious, we can't introspect it. The evidence is that it has the same kind of content as the ventral stream. So if they have the same kind of content, but one's unconscious, then this is the view to pick. I think the other two views are kind of held back by this assumption that if it's unconscious, it must lack qualitative character, and that if it has it, it must be conscious. Because they assume those things go together, they don't see this in-between option. Are you tired out, or can you bear one more slide? Yeah. Just to generalize the idea a little bit. Go back to Block's cases. So talking more about overflow in general. So he argues that quite aside from this, he doesn't really talk about the two visual streams actually, as far as I know, but he's argued quite separately that consciousness overflows mechanisms of cognitive access, introspection, report, memory, and so on. So there's the drill case. Another one is a guy who has his fusiform face area lights up, the area that registers faces, but he doesn't have visual experience of faces. Well, that's what he says, he doesn't see them. Block says it might be that he has inaccessible experience of faces here, since that area lights up. It just might not be cognitively something he can report on. Some of Block's cases are a little worrying. I talked about this one yesterday. So for general anesthetic, he says, you think when you go for an operation, the general anesthetic stops you feeling any pain, right? Nope. All it does is cut off the access, cognitive access. So you feel pain, you can't report on it. You can't act on it because you're paralyzed. And you can't remember it afterwards. How awful is that? So you feel it, but it's inaccessible. That's an awful, awful suggestion.
So I was preparing for a possible situation with that. I had a talk with somebody and then they said that experiencing pain still might be detectable in your brain electricity and stuff. And in that case, if that is to be monitored, then you can see whether somebody is or is not experiencing pain, or at least goes somewhere along the lines of that. And in some cases, they do that. In some cases, they usually don't. It's expensive. But there is also that way of monitoring with patient is really under pain or not, even though they are not able to reflect it.
Yeah, but but in a minute, I'm going to tell you my view of this in a minute, and I think you'll see then that those brain scans don't answer the question actually. But what is true, people show pain responses under general anesthetic, heart rate goes up, they sweat, it's a bit worrying, but they don't remember anything afterwards, so you think it's not there. Yeah, there are these brain scans as well, but is that mere processing or is it experience? Hard to know, because we don't know the neural basis of consciousness, right? But in my view, you can say you don't have pain that you feel but can't access, because that's horrible and also hard to make sense of. You have unconscious pain, qualitative character, unfelt pain. And that's why the person doesn't remember being in pain. They had pain, but they didn't feel it. That might sound really weird, okay, looking at what's unfelt pain, but haven't you ever been playing sport and injured yourself? Someone stamps on my foot in football. I carry on playing and the pain kind of fades into the background and I only feel it afterwards. So maybe there was pain there that I didn't feel. Someone can be limping and not aware of the pain, or a headache that lasts for days. Anyone have migraine like I do? Do they last for days? Can do. Okay, that's good that I don't. Mine can last for days. I have the impression when I go to bed and I wake up in the morning and the same qualitative pain is there, that it's been there all night, but I didn't feel it. Or it wakes you up in the night. But to wake you up, it has to exist before you're conscious to bring you to consciousness. So there's a lot of people that complain about unconscious pain. So I think it makes sense. Anyway, you may not.
I don't know, it seems that mechanism works slightly different. Years ago, we had a colleague, Nicola Grahek from Belgium.
Yes, Grahek, yeah.
Yeah, he worked with Dennett, and so he has a book. So the title is something like The Pain That We Don't Feel, and there are cases where we feel pain, although we are not in the pain.
We don't mind it, yeah.
No. The mechanism is there is some gland somewhere in the brain that produces morphine, androgen morphine. And when you are in pain, it activates during the shock. So when you are in pain, then that gland spreads morphine, and the path from pain to your consciousness is blocked with this morphine.
That would be unconscious pain then.
So would that be unconscious?
If the pain is there, but the path is blocked to consciousness, then you're talking about a pain that's not conscious. I mean,
yeah, that's what he said. Many people say, no, if you don't feel it, it's not pain, over.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's a big debate in the philosophy of pain about that. I know Grahek's work on asymbolia, but there's something to read about that. I'd love to read it. Yeah, so, I mean, Valerie Hardcastle, maybe you haven't heard of her, she's another person who thinks there isn't just unconscious pain processing, it's unconscious pain itself. Anyway, so if you can make sense of that, that might be what's going on. So that would be okay. You're in pain in a sense in the operation, maybe that's not good, but as long as you don't feel it, that's better than being in conscious pain that you don't remember and can't access. And we can say similar things about other overflow cases. So the drill case, I want to say, I don't literally consciously experience the drill sound, but I have an unconscious auditory quale, if you like. That later I can access it and I can remember that it was there, that quality, but I'm not experiencing it the whole time. With it being inaccessible, that's just weird. So I've got a way of preserving the link between cognitive access and consciousness, but also allowing that there are other kinds of qualia in the background. So it's instead of, if you like, instead of consciousness overflowing cognitive access, this is qualitative character overflowing consciousness. So which of those occurs? Do both occur? That's a good question. Maybe we can talk about that a bit. I have another slide on that, but maybe I'll just stop there and take some questions. Thank you.
Questions, comments, Mattia?
Thanks, Simon. This was really great. I really enjoyed your talk. And you mentioned somewhere that you think a good philosophical approach is to take a couple of theories that are empirically underdetermined and explore the logical possibility. I think this is exactly on point, and I really share my sympathies with you. And I really love projects that are that are oriented towards this goal. Having this in mind, so I have several questions. I'll pose just one for now. And I'm not. This is not really a philosophical point, but maybe an empirical one. I can't remember those which slide it was.
Okay.
But when you talk about the reasons why we should prefer your view.
Yeah, I'll go back to that, and you can.
Yeah. So you have somewhere there you have mentioned that both the ventral and the dorsal stream share a common source.
Yeah.
And yeah, this should lead us. Yeah, and this should lead us to believe that some kind of semantic content could plausibly end up in the dorsal stream, right?
And qualia.
And qualia. Yeah. But and again, I'm not sure if this is a philosophical point or maybe more. Maybe this is a question that can be initially solved by empirical research. For instance, I know is it maybe even possible that the dorsal stream filters out qualia or semantic content. Like, can this even fit into a kind of explanation? So my point being, I'm not sure if this is necessary. I'm not sure if we should necessarily prefer your interpretation based on that point.
Right.
And again, I'm not sure if my comment is right. Maybe it is plausible that sometime in the future we can empirically determine if this is some kind of filtering going around.
Sure.
I'm not sure if I'm making sense.
No, totally.
I'm talking off my but yeah, I'm just interested.
Yeah. No, maybe. I mean, it's hard to know. So you're saying that well, maybe there are qualia generated in the early visual cortex,
Yeah.
but then they don't make it into the dorsal stream because they get filtered out. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe a magic pixie comes along and takes them out. I mean, these are like extra processes we don't know about. Okay, but forget that one for a second. Britt Brogard argues like this. Some of the dorsal stream content seem to get into this conscious vision because you do have a representation of where objects are in relation to you, whether they're graspable or not, and how so. So there's some dorsal stream content in consciousness, but if it can get into consciousness, it must be apt for consciousness. It must be the sort of content that could be part of what it's like. And that suggests that it's the same kind of stuff. Again, I suppose you could say, no, there's another neural pixie that takes the dorsal stream content and puts the magic qualia back in when it comes in. Maybe you could say that, hard to rule it out, but it seems like a simpler explanation in a way. I think that's part of what's driving Wu as well, Wayne Wu's idea. Instead of saying they're radically different, which is weird, say they have the same kind of content, just one of them. It seems in a way more parsimonious. I can see where he's going. It's just one of them we can't access.
Yeah.
But then if you have trouble with that idea, you might want to say what I'm saying. And yeah, did I manage to at least put them? If you don't prefer mine, did I manage to at least make it seem like a possibility?
Yeah, parsimony is a good thing always to invoke, I think. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Did you want to say something else?
That's it for now. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
What's your name? Sorry.
Edward.
Ed.
I don't know if it makes sense. I was trying to make sense of when you switched to talking about being conscious of the dorsal stream, to the dorsal stream contributing to consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering about flipping this on its head and looking at the ventral stream.
Yeah.
Because you're saying, look, maybe we have this contribution to consciousness of the dorsal stream.
Yeah.
We're pretty clear that the ventral stream contributes to consciousness. But can't you just ask the question of whether we're conscious of either of these and just say, maybe we're not conscious of the ventral stream itself.
Oh, right.
The ventral stream contributes to our conscious experience,
Well,
but we're not conscious of it. I don't know.
okay, so good. This is a distinction maybe I should have tried to make clearer. Put it this way, when you're having conscious... Okay, so there's a bit in the dorsal stream. Sorry. If I get them mixed up, what chance have you guys got? There's an early ventral stream, there's a bit that lights up for houses and another bit that lights up for non-house objects. So when you're seeing a house and you say, I see a house, it's lighting up like a Christmas tree. When you're not seeing a house, you're seeing another object, that bit lights up. So there's a correlation there, a nice correlation between ventral stream activity and your conscious experience. So there, I don't want to say ventral is contributing to consciousness. There, it's more plausible that that is consciousness. Now, now, when I say dorsal contributes, what I mean is this. Be helpful if I had a diagram.
So if you have questions, raise your hand. I will put you on the list, and then we are going by the list.
Let me go back to my brain picture. So The point is, part of visual experience, Brogard suggests, is dorsal stream kinds of properties, like where things are, how they're graspable. Like, look at the cup, look at my flask. I think you can just see, for want of a better word, that is going to be easier to pick up than this. This looks heavier and so on. Those are like dorsal stream properties because they're motor control properties. Now, the claim is not this is lighting up in the conscious experience. The claim is some content from here must be getting into here, which is the conscious bit. It's shared through these connections. There's one that's there, or it's shared by going back to V1 and then out that way. So that's what contributing means. Somehow content from here is getting into there and becoming conscious. So do you see the difference between correlating and contributing? Because this is not lighting up when you're having that experience in the way that indicates consciousness. No?
I'm not convinced. I don't know.
I mean,
I mean, there's a correlation between, I don't know, your retinal ganglion cells and their activity and light coming into your eye, right? So if I'm having a visual experience, then I've got some kind of activity in my retinal ganglion cells, which correlates with my conscious visual experience.
well,
I definitely don't want to say that anything in my eye is.
no, it doesn't correlate. Sorry, it doesn't exactly correlate because it comes way before, but in neuropsychological terms, quite a long way before your vision. You think about it, if there's a block, if you cut off the lateral geniculate nucleus, then that's going to get to visual V1 and you're not going to have an experience. So there's not a correlation between that and consciousness. Whereas they happen at exactly the same time. There is a correlation between the house area activating and the visual experience of the house.
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't remember the name of the research, but they did research on gymnasts.
Yeah.
And I'm not exactly sure how it went, but the gymnasts were more successful if they watched videos of other gymnasts performing the act. And also if someone explained to them, okay, step by step, you do this, you jump this high, and then you blah, blah, blah. And also if they thought directly about doing it in certain cases, it was more successful. So it seems to me that if your conscious thinking about an action can improve your future action, that it seems to suggest that it's conscious. But at the same time, you mentioned Federer. Well, it seems to me that tennis players or other like sports people, they don't exactly. I think it's a range. What Bečić talked about football. It's not necessarily 0 or 1. Some people are more successful. Some people have practiced more. Some people have practiced less. You can improve in time, although you didn't do the calculations. You just have the feeling of.
But the calculations are done.
Yeah.
If you believe in that kind of way of talking about the brain at all, calculations are done since you do it.
They're doing that in Split with sportsmen currently.
What do you mean research?
Well, it's not research, it's kind of advanced additional training. So they are showing the films. I think that there is some kind of resonance, neurological resonance, that the muscles are, brain centers are activating as they are watching movie, playing soccer, tennis, running, boxing, whatever. So even watching it is partly already a training, and they are somewhere in Split. There is a team of people. They are doing that.
That could be explained. That kind of training that seems to me to be evidence that the ventral stream is sharing content with the dorsal stream, and there are connections in both directions, like I say, as opposed to saying that the motor training I'm doing is with the ventral stream, because. For example, the people who've got like D has got serious ventral stream damage, but her motor capacities are unaffected. It's hard to tell with us because we've got these like, if you like, two fine horses that are both able to pull the chariot. But when one of them is damaged, like in her case, that dissociation does seem to show more functional specialization.
So research, it's not that the people, the gymnasts and other people, whatever, that they were just watching and they were told to imagine
Yeah.
themselves
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
So the idea is that not only watching it, but literally visually imagining
Sure.
yourself in that position, and you will be doing it in half an hour.
Yeah.
Actually improves your chances of.
Yeah. That's interesting. But again, that suggests a kind of sharing of
Yeah.
content. So DF can't do that. She can't visualize that kind of thing because of the damage she's got, but she can, you know, do the activities. Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting phenomenon, isn't it?
Martin.
Yeah, going back again to the reasons why we should favor your position. You have mentioned that hidden consciousness is hard to make sense of because it severs consciousness and introspection, right? I think this is Wu, if I'm not mistaken, or
Well, he thinks it's kind of okay. He thinks it's kind of okay. I was talking.
yeah, this was in response to Wu from your end, right?
Yeah, I was saying with David Rosenthal that I
Okay.
find it hard to make
Yeah,
sense
yeah.
of inaccessible consciousness.
And I always find these cases interesting because, and this might be completely crazy from my end, but I'm always interested in the boundaries in which we can rely on our intuitions. So I'm not really into contemporary. I'm not following the contemporary discussion in the philosophy of mind. So I'm not really sure how much of a lunatic I would be if I would investigate this possibility. But are there any reputable authors who write on the, I don't know, topic that consciousness need not necessarily be introspectable?
Yeah, Ned Block has been saying that since 1995.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the drill sound is supposedly not introspectable. While before you notice it.
Yeah. And in that case, aren't you, in a sense, begging the question then, I guess? Yeah.
Well, who's begging the question? I mean, he's got a view. He says that makes sense. There's an alternative view.
Mhm.
I'm unconsciously hearing the sound and registering it when it stops, but at no point is consciousness outside. The argument that Rosenthal's got against overflow is a kind of conceptual, it's a philosophical argument. If I don't cognitively access it in a way it doesn't register with me, I don't notice it. Block says that. Take it away, I don't notice it. I don't do or say or think anything different because I can't act. It's inaccessible. So if it doesn't register with me in a way I'm unaware of it, if I'm unaware of it, I'm not conscious of it. Hence, inaccessibility entails lack of consciousness. That seems to me is not the end of the story, but it's a pretty plausible argument. Now you say, so where's the question being begged there?
Yeah, no, I just got the impression that when you say that it's hard to make sense of the idea when we separate introspection from consciousness, just at that point, and I'm not sure even if you were or not, but it's
No, I agree. I mean, this is part of the reason for saying there are qualia, but they're unconscious, which you may think doesn't make sense either. But maybe we just got a choice of things that none of which really make sense. But yeah, sorry, go on.
No, yeah, I was just, I'm always interested at these points, whether or not we should, I don't know, if something is hard to make sense of, right?
Yeah.
How much we should rely on this points to go in favor of our theory or, should criticize other theories.
Yeah.
I'm just interested about this, maybe in a philosophical point. Right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, in the interest of maybe even parsimony and, our basic intuitions, I can understand why this point should be made.
I think Rosenthal would be cross if he were listening. If he were listening in and he heard us saying that this was about intuitions, he would get cross. He just thinks he's got a very strong argument here. No cognitive access, no registering, no awareness, no consciousness. Otherwise, you're talking about a conscious state you're unaware of being in. And that sounds like an oxymoron. I think he would claim that's not about intuitions. So that's what he would say. But yeah, I mean, we don't understand how light can be a wave in a particle. But hell, physics says that it is. We don't understand it, but that's what it says. So maybe we don't have to understand. But these options are mutually exclusive of one another. They're not empirically testable, but they are making empirical claims about what's going on and what the nature of the dorsal stream is. So one of them, at most, can be true. So we need to find a way of deciding which one. And since the empirical stuff doesn't tell us, it's a problem.
Thanks.
Well, so one option is that there is qualitative character, but we are not conscious of it.
That's what I say, yeah.
Another option is what? That there is no character.
Yeah, that's the zombie. That's the zombie
I don't know which
interpretation.
one is supposed to be methodological or economically more acceptable.
Well, okay, so here's my reasoning.
I mean, that reminds me of quite often I'm looking for a book in my home, and then, well, I have a book, but I cannot find it. That's one option. Another option is I don't have it. But it amounts to the same. I cannot find it. Although
does.
objectively there is difference, matter of fact,
Yeah,
whether
there
I
is a
have
matter.
it or not.
Okay, here's my reasoning. Think about the drill case, like a simpler case for a second. There's reason to think you're not conscious of the drill sound because you can't report before you notice it, because you can't say or do anything about it. There's reason to think consciousness is missing. But there's reason to think that the sound is there for you in some sense because you notice it stop. The sound auditory quale. So there's reason to think the quale is there. There's reason to think you're not conscious of it. So it's an unconscious quale. The other interpretations say, well, there's probably a quale there, and then they assume that must be conscious. So you've got inaccessible consciousness. Or there's no consciousness, so there can't be quale, so it must just be a zombie system. So they're forced to these extremes. Whereas I think I can accommodate the data better than they can. That's what I would say. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But is there some general methodological or I don't know advantage for one option over the other?
Well, methodological. I mean, okay. So let me just.
This one is more simple or something. In the case of this drilling machine, it is reasonable to assume that some centers in our brain and in our ears and so on are active continuously.
Yes. They are, but that doesn't tell you whether they're conscious or not, that activity, because we don't know what the neural correlate of consciousness is. Just maybe this is a good place to make one more point then that I was going to make if I had time. So one of Block's arguments for overflow is the mechanisms for consciousness and the mechanisms for cognitive access are plausibly distinct. So here's what he thinks goes on when you've got visual consciousness. You've got normal visual processing from V1 upwards, and then you've got these like feedback loops. So there are two mechanisms, and that's what makes you conscious of it. So you've got like a picture being built up, the visual image, and then when there's this like backwards processing, that's what makes you conscious of it. So there are two mechanisms. And then there's another mechanism for accessing it, reporting it, talking about it, and that's in frontal areas. So he says these are two different mechanisms. Anatomically, it would make sense that they could dissociate. So you could have consciousness being produced here, but if this frontal activity isn't going on, you won't be able to do anything with it. It will be kind of isolated. That's one of his arguments. But there's a similar argument I can make, because on most views of what goes on in consciousness, there's a one mechanism for qualitative character and another one for consciousness. So here's the theory about visual qualia. The qualia are put together by activity forwards from V1 through the other areas, and then consciousness is produced again by these feedback loops. Those are two different mechanisms. So again, they should be able to come apart in theory. So there's empirical reasons to think both are possible. But yeah, maybe both happen, but they do compete when it comes to explaining these overflow cases. They are incompatible with one another there, so you may have to choose. Yeah, I don't know. That's not methodological, but it's empirical.
Somebody who has inclinations toward verificationism or something, would say that if they are empirically equivalent, then there is no
but there's two
difference. But it was Dennett had this argument against the existence of qualia, if you remember.
Yeah.
One option is that qualia remain the same, but our attitude toward them is changing to the taste of beer. Another one is that the qualia is changing to time, and that our attitude is the same. So what was his conclusion? It was surprising. There is no such thing as qualia.
Yeah, it's like the worst argument ever. Sorry.
Yeah.
Because here they are.
Yeah.
Now I'm about to drink this and not that because of the flavor. What's he talking about? I just have no time for that. Sorry, it's just ridiculous. I'm still waiting to find in Dennett's work like a little footnote that says this was all a joke. Sorry. Okay. I was going to say something else.
I confused you.
No. Now you got me overexcited. No, it's gone. It's gone from my head. What were you saying before you said that? Oh, that they're empirically. Yeah, there's two senses of empirically equivalent, though. Right, seems to me. I think this came up yesterday. One is, could we do a test in a laboratory that would distinguish these hypotheses? Maybe not. But another sense is, do they say different things about the world? Would the world be a different way? Clearly, these are not empirically equivalent in that sense. Either the dorsal stream is a zombie, or it's inaccessibly conscious, or it has qualitative character and no consciousness. Those are empirically different claims about the world, even if we can't distinguish them experimentally. But what are you going to do? I mean, why assume everything is experimentally pokeable? I don't know. You're looking a bit tortured. Do you want to stop there, or
any more questions, comments? No. Okay.
Can I do a final vote? Who votes for dorsal stream as a zombie? It's popular earlier. Only one. It's gone down. Who votes for it's conscious?
For zombie.
Zombie, inaccessible but conscious. One. Unconscious but has qualia. Oh, it's a draw. 2, 2, and 1. But some of you got no view anymore. All right. Hey, thanks a lot.
Let's continue in about 10 minutes or something. Both your dumplings and we will go on.